Welcome to One Insight. My name is Rich Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can actually be lonely. You can feel like more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything.
You can't make this up. Sometimes the universe makes things happen perfectly. Today, Nuria and Catherine are on the podcast together. We didn't know they'd be on at the same time. It was just the scheduling that worked this way. But it turns out we discover, all three of us, in this conversation, that both of them have run successful businesses for over 10 years and transitioned into coaching. And we go on a path that's really interesting for all three of us around this idea that there's no one right answer. That it's great to have clarity ahead of you, but most of the time we don't. And all we have is the clarity behind us. The clarity of, well, it's worked out so far, so I'm probably okay going forwards. I grew up in London. There'll be nights in London when it'd be very foggy, and I could drive home 10 miles, despite the fact that I could only see a few yards ahead of me. And life is much like that. It's nice to have clarity 5-10 years into the future about exactly what's going to happen. But life's really, really like that. We've just seen that in a year of COVID. We have no idea what's actually coming. Enjoy this conversation. These are two really interesting women. Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Hi, Nuria.
Hi, Rich.
Hey, well, I'm going to ask you a question that you're probably expecting. What would make this an extraordinary conversation for you? So, Nuria, why don't you go first? What you didn't have to say yes to this. We're working together on Project Kairos, but you chose to come and be on a podcast too. Yes. What are you here for?
So, what I wanted some support with is some situations that I have been experiencing with my clients. In different ways, I have come to a place where they say, I don't know what I want to talk about today.
Love it.
And so I started coaching in August. I started with my practicing, just starting coaching. And then by December, I had my first client that hired me for a year. Then I started, I don't feel I have trouble getting clients now. I now have 8 clients that I'm working with, even if I still have my job I'm working 3 or 4 days a week as a chef. So getting clients, and that thing is not a struggle for me right now. But at some point, my clients say, I don't know what I want to talk about, or I don't know what I want.
Great. Okay. We can really play over there. I want to acknowledge you for something, first of all, because I think my first year of coaching, I made $4.5 grand, made $17.5 grand my second year. Creating clients was a real struggle until I met Steve Chandler. We ended up writing a book together, but it took a long time for me to really master this art. And I think what's missed when you describe what's happening is when you say, I have all these clients, even though I'm still working as a chef, it's actually because I'm still working as a chef, because you don't need a client. And there's something about the energy when you don't need a client that's very attractive. When most coaches on the planet are very needy, as we wrote in our book, needy is creepy, it's very interesting. There's no word in the English language that means the opposite of needy. Needless, it's not really a word, but you embody that characteristic. And I think that's why you're creating clients is not an issue for you. You're serving people. There's not much time. So I can't work with you anytime. These are the times I can offer you. Very attractive, very enrolling. So I love that. I want to honor you for that.
Thanks.
One of the favorite things I hear from a client is when they say, I don't know what to talk about today. I want to come to that in a minute. I want to check in with Catherine first, and we'll see where we go with that one, okay?
Okay.
Hi, Catherine.
Hey.
What you got? What would make this a really special conversation for you?
So I feel like that I have been on the verge of something big, and I just don't know what it is. I've been going deep and trying to figure it out. And it's kind of interesting that Nuria and I came on this at the same time, because I also have another business that I've had for about 15 years now. And I have, when I was going into the 10th year, I thought, okay, what is it going to be going forward? And I had some really great coaching around it. And I just could never really get there. And it kept like, what is it? What is it? What is it? Where am I going? Where am I going? And I just can't figure it out. And coaching, I stumbled on during COVID because I wanted to get better at doing the things that I was already doing. And it was a good opportunity for me to grow. And I've really enjoyed it. But I guess what I would think about is kind of, what is it that I can do to maybe even lean in a little bit more to try to figure out, is coaching the next big thing for me, or is it not, or is it just another chapter in my life?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's see where we go on that one. I'm going to come back to Nuria for a second, then I'll come to you and you'll see why I'm doing it in this way. All right, Nuria. So here's what I say in those moments. And I'm laughing because it is kind of fun and funny. Clients often show up thinking they have to have a problem. And that's what I call remedial coaching. You know, bring me your problem, I'll help you fix it. Bring me your next problem, I'll help you fix it. A lot of coaches make a lot of money in a business that way. I solve problems. But I don't like to work that way. I like to work with extraordinary top performers. You two have run businesses for 10 years. It's extraordinary what you've done. Most businesses don't work for more than 3 years before they go bust. And not only that, you've now transitioned into doing other things too. We didn't plan this, but no coincidence you're on the same call, right? So if a client says, I don't know what to do today, what to talk about today, I say, that's great. This isn't remedial coaching. Why don't we just have a chat and see what happens? And I'll sometimes say something like this. What's on your mind? It's a great question because there's always stuff on our mind. It's the nature of being human. And I'll just let them talk. Here's another one. You know what? Let's not do any coaching today. Tell me your story. And they kind of laugh. What do you mean? Since I was a kid? And you go, yeah. Take me back through your life. What did you love to do when you were 6 years old? And then move forward from there. You'll be surprised at just what you get to create when they tell you their story or they tell you what's on their mind. How's that, Nuria?
Yeah, like actually I had a call with my client, one of them. And I actually did something similar. I told him, tell me what you would love to do when you were a kid. You know, and he actually was like, let me think about it. And I knew like that question has not been asked. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe in a long time or never.
Probably never, I'd say.
So yeah, it's interesting that you said that. That came to my mind. But still I was like, was that good? Like, was that a good option? You know, like what would Rich do? So that's right.
Well, so here's the thing. And the funny thing for you two, so what will be edited out for everyone else who's listening is that we had your internet went down and you got kicked off the call. My kids are playing outside too loud. My door was open and it got too hot. I had to turn the air conditioning on. Now we've edited all that out. So if I hadn't said this out loud, anyone who's listening or watching would go, wow, that seems seamless how they did that. But hopefully if my team did the editing correctly when it actually comes out, you wouldn't know that. So what would Rich do? I don't know, but I wouldn't get it right. You know, the best advice I got about parenting from my friends was you can't get it right. It's great advice for business, for parenting, for relationships, and for being a great coach. It doesn't matter what I would have done. I'm not their coach. In fact, I might be the worst coach for them. I'm not the right coach for everybody. So don't worry about what I would have done. What you did was perfect in that moment. Which leads me neatly on to where you are, Catherine. Because this feeling, I'm on the verge of something big. Should I be doing coaching? Should I not be doing coaching? Well, I don't know. You know what? Sometimes it's nice to have clarity. But my experience has been, most of the time, clarity comes in the rear view mirror. I had clarity that I wanted to be a very young head teacher in England. When I lost my job, I was devastated. I'm so grateful now. So grateful. I thought that the boss who fired me was making a terrible mistake. She did exactly what was needed. What was needed for that school at that time. I was not the right person. I didn't even enjoy the job at the time. I'd only been there for a couple of weeks, and I quickly realized it was not what I wanted and what they presented to me. But I still tried to fight not to leave. So clarity, we want it in the future. Every time there's something new coming, it's like it would be helpful. We don't always need it. In fact, most of the time, we can survive very well without it.
One thing that comes to mind as I think about it is it unfair at some level to coach if I don't. I think I'm kind of answering my own question, but I hear you hear people so much say that when they're a coach that they felt so passionate about being a coach, and this was really why they are following this path. And I don't know if I'm in that passionate place yet. So am I at some level not being fair to the clients?
Well, I think it was Steve Jobs who used to say, follow your passion. And if I'm right, it's Scott Galloway, who's an entrepreneur and a professor of entrepreneurship at New York Stearns University, who says, follow your passion is bullshit that billionaires say. Because it's easy once you're a billionaire and you've worked your butt off doing things that were really hard to say, follow your passion. But it's not always the way. Sometimes passion comes by working hard at something that's challenging. And we discover on the other side of it what our passion is. And sometimes we have it first, but not always. So as I hear you, it sounds like you're in experimenting mode. And that's a great place to be.
Yeah, it is of interesting. And I was listening to, I guess, two podcasts ago, where the woman was on, ironically, who was talking about she didn't have anything to talk about. And you brought her in and she had some really amazing insights. And one of the insights that I had was that she talked about that that it was easier for her to move when she was in like a corporate place, or when someone believes in her. She said, when someone believes in me, it's easy for me to go there, but now she's doing something on her own. And I really felt that, because that's almost where it is. It's hard for me to get motivated in some ways because I'm on my own. There's no one to say you're going the right direction, where in the other stuff that I'm doing, it's been there all along almost. That's how it feels.
Yeah, but so by the way, I'd forgotten about that. We did a podcast episode when someone showed up with exactly that. I don't know what to talk about today. By the time this one gets out, it won't have been 2 episodes back. It'll be a few episodes back. But Nuria, you can track that one down. It'd be good for you to listen to, and you'll see how I play that way. It is lonely when you're on a new path, Catherine, and you're not sure where you're going, which is why I curate communities of really interesting and fascinating people. And I love to do that. You're in one of those communities right now. So amongst that community of people, you can begin to find who are your peeps, 3 or 4 of those people who, you know what, these are the people who say, we believe in you, Catherine. Because sometimes we need that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay.
Yeah.
What's going on right now? What's happening?
It feels, you're right. I mean, that community is great. And I found that to be true of all the coaches that I've met over the last year.
Come out of the explanation. What's the emotion that's so close to the surface?
I think it's the support, maybe. When you said it's lonely, it does feel lonely.
Yeah.
And we all need support.
Yeah.
And it's not that I don't have support, because I have lots of people that believe in me. Maybe it's I've got to be more supportive of myself. Maybe I don't believe in myself enough.
Well, often when we're great at helping others, it's very hard to receive. And so we can share that we believe in other people and we can be there to help other people. But it's hard to let other people's belief in. Oh, I get you kind of believe in me, or you believe, but there's something missing over here. Or I can be there to help you, but it's really hard to say yes to receive help.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's hard.
Yep.
Whenever I do projects with groups, I always feel like I would only be in that position because of everyone around me.
Look, there's some truth to that. We live in this myth in America about the entrepreneurs who are the lone wolves who make things happen all on their own. No one ever does anything alone. You can't. You need support in all sorts of ways. And it's also very lonely when you're at a leadership level. And that's why I curate communities of peers who can be there for me and I can be there for them. I run my own. I'm in other people's. I need to have that level of support around me, and challenge too. So I'm glad you're in our community, and I'm glad you've been brave enough to share in this way. And the universe had the two of you be on this call for a reason, right? Both of you running your own business for 10 years, both of you up to something new in life and wondering where it's going next. No coincidence here. Nuria, what's your one takeaway? If you could sum it up in a sentence you're taking away from today, what would that be?
There's not a right way, and there's not a wrong way. When you are in a coaching moment relationship with someone, there is a profound, let's say, reason maybe, or moment between you and that person, and trusting that if you're there and in your giving mode and your serving mode, you're gonna be, even with sometimes it looks like it's not what it should have been or not your best. Maybe that's what that person needed, and trusting that it's an exercise. I think
that's a great catch. And one thing I'd leave you with as well is the thought that often the most powerful coaching happens between the conversations. So it doesn't matter what you do or say in that conversation here, it's what happens in that space of insight by the time they speak to you next. What actions do they take? What actions do they not take? What ideas and insights pop between the conversations? It takes a lot of the pressure off you. Thanks, Nara.
Yes. I have one more thing that I wanted to mention. Maybe it bonds together, or maybe we end up in the same answer, but it was at some point, like for me, is new to have a client for 5 months or 3 months and then 6 months, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, and I haven't had a coach for so long either, a coach of my own. So I don't know for my own experience, and I don't know for my experience with clients, how is this evolution happen? And of course, I will find out. But sometimes I feel like, how is this going to be like after, when you go about the months or the longer time? To me, it seems like a question there. Like, how do you evolve? And I don't know. This is like a blank, and I don't know if there is anything that you could share with me about that moment of.
Yeah, as you share that, I think, oh, how exciting. I can't wait for you to tell me how that evolves. Because I could tell you how it works for me, but that's how it works for me. Look, I've got friends. One of my friends has been coaching over 20 years, will never sign an agreement longer than 3 months. He has a big value on freedom. He says, I'll work with you for 3 months and we'll reevaluate. If we still want to work together, you do and I do, we'll re-sign a contract. He's had people who work with him for years, but never more than 3 months at a time. I like to have year-long agreements. That's really fun for me. I never know what's going to happen next. Sometimes I have clients where there's a mission they're working on, and we're working on the same thing week after week towards a project or something. Sometimes we just show up. What should we talk about today? And we see where we go. So there's no one right way of doing this too. So I am excited to see how you make this land for yourself as time goes on.
Yeah.
I know that's not, it would be nice if there was an easy answer with like, follow these steps. And some people will teach you that. I'm sure there's some coaches who will teach you that. I play at a different level. And so I don't have a simple answer for you other than, I can't wait for you to tell me.
I think the answer is great. I think this is what I do also. Like from the first time I read your book and I read it again and I listened to it and it was just so, for me, I was like really connecting with that energy. I think what the answer that you just gave me brings me back to that energy of stay in the moment, stay in the relationship, stay there. Sometimes I hear you many times repeating things and you said, but it's not repeating. Like, what is it telling you today? And so amazing. Simplicity.
Yeah, thanks. Good catch. You'll hear me many times saying similar things. And it won't always land. I was talking to a client of mine the other day. She's been a client for over 6 years. And she called me and said, that thing I heard you share on a coaching call, that was amazing. I've never heard you share that before. I said, oh, really? I've written 2 articles on it. I've talked about it in a podcast. And you've been present in a coaching situation where I've shared about it before. And she went, oh my God, you're right. You know what? Sometimes we can't hear it if we're not ready. Her unconscious had heard it. She realized that in that moment. But in that moment, suddenly it landed.
Yes.
Catherine, if you could sum up in a sentence for you, what's the biggest takeaway for you?
I think it's believe in yourself, and it's lonely, but it doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I wanted to share something, with Catherine. Today, when I got home before the call and I was walking my dog, I was feeling exactly like you're feeling. Like, this is lonely. I came back from the hotel and I'm like hearing all the people working with the people at the hotel. It's a family and it's a lot of people, a lot of noise and a lot of happiness many times. And I was like, how is it going to be my life when I'm not in the hotel anymore? Like, how is it going to be when I'm working full time as a coach? Like, I really want to do that. And I actually thought something. I don't know if I was energetically connected to Richard. I thought it's lonely for now because you're just starting and you are going, you're getting to know this path and you're going to find a way to not making it lonely later.
Yeah, that's great. Look, it can be lonely and you can set a distinction around community. I want a community of extraordinary people around me. And then it's your intentionality about creating that. I can't tell you how. Sometimes it's coming into a community like Project Kairos, like you're in, that someone else has created. And sometimes it's about creating your own community. Thank you both for playing with me today.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
and we'll cut it there. Thank you, guys. That was really fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for rolling with me through all the chaos of that as well. That was fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's just bizarre how things work. It just is. I mean, the way how I found you, and then as I'm sure many of your clients are, it's probably one of the bigger investments at the beginning for sure. So, and I was nervous about it, but I felt like it just drew me. There was something about the community and not knowing anything other than the book and your podcast, but it's like everyone I relate to in some level. It's just bizarre.
Well, I'll tell you why it's not bizarre. It's because I spent much of my childhood and some of my adulthood feeling very, very lonely. And I never knew how, other people always seem to have community, not me, because I was different. And it's not a coincidence that you're surrounded by people who feel lonely in some ways, but also drawn completely to all the people in my community, because they're a reflection of me. You're two women who've done extraordinary things in life, up to bigger things in life next. And it's hard to find other people who play as big a game as you do. Me too. So I actively curate a community of people like you. One of the reasons the investment for Project Kairos is significant, because it calls out the right people, Catherine.
And it's funny because for me, when I paid it, I felt it was a lot of money. And after, I always feel it's not a lot of money. And I feel it's a good amount of money, but I always feel this cannot be paid with money. And it's just like, I really thank you, Rich, for what you do. And I know we all thank you all the time, but it's nice to thank you because what you do is amazing. And to bring us together is something that actually, for me, is the same. Like I tell to everybody, now I am with people that are like me, and I can really feel it. And it's very, very clear. And sometimes for me, it's very quiet. Like when we are in our meetings with Project Kairos, I thought I was going to be like, I want to ask this, I want to ask that. So many times I'm just quiet and listening, but you feel together and in a like-minded group, and it's great. So.
Thank you. I'm really touched. Thanks again, you guys.
Thank you, Rich.
Bye for now.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Bye.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching, it was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.